now a Channel 4 News special, the French elections.
Hello, good evening from Paris, where the voters of France have delivered a snub to President François Mitterrand and set a time bomb ticking away under the country's constitution. The president himself was not up for re-election today, but his socialist majority in the country's main legislative body, the National Assembly, has. Tonight, the president lost that majority. The country's voters have given the right-wing alliance, made up in the main of the RPR, led by Jacques Chirac, and the UDF, led by former President Giscard d'Estaing, a simple, though not over-generous majority in the National Assembly. For the socialists, it could have been much worse. But today's result still creates an unprecedented situation in France and makes a constitutional crisis later virtually inevitable. This is why, historically, the president has always had an assembly made up in the main of supporters of his own party. It's been that way ever since de Gaulle became president in the late 50s, inaugurating the Fifth Republic with a strong new constitution. And during his first 5 years as president, Mitterrand too had an assembly which supported him. This is how the assembly looked at the time of President Mitterrand's election in 1981. The socialists had 285 seats, the communists 44. On the right of the spectrum, the RPR had 88, and their alliance partners, the UDF, 62 seats. This was the division in an assembly of 491 seats. But in a National Assembly, now enlarged to 577, this is how today's voting has changed the political complexion. The socialists have lost 74 seats and now have in the Assembly 211. The communists have also been losers. They have been in decline since 1978, and they lost up to 8 seats. They now have 36 seats in the Assembly. The right-wing RPR gained 73 and now have 161 seats in the Assembly. Their right-wing alliance partners, the UDF, gained 60 seats and now have 128 seats in the Assembly. The Ecology Party still has no seats. The National Front were not represented in the old Assembly. Tonight, it looks as though they have picked up 33 seats. So, on the results we have so far, assuming that the RPR and the UDF and its junior coalition parties vote together, the right wing are the clear winners in today's election. Their combined voting strength takes them safely past the 289 magic figure which they need for an absolute majority. A victory for the right-wing alliance, led by Jacques Chirac's RPR and Giscard d'Estaing's UDF, had been on the cards, and the socialists have lost their overall majority. But the system of proportional representation brought in for this election by President Mitterrand enabled the far right, the National Front, to pick up seats at the expense of the orthodox right and to narrow the size of that majority. This must go down as a tribute to the skill of the president. Faced with an almost certain loss of his majority in the Assembly, he's managed to limit the damage. Mitterrand, though, must still cohabit with the right wing. But as Jane Corbin reports, his Socialist Party might have done far worse than they actually did tonight.
Tonight, both sides were celebrating. The socialists because they had succeeded in reducing the majority their opposition had counted on to form a strong government, and the right because they were now in power after 5 years of socialist rule. But there are many uncertainties at the end of a day of intense political speculation. It all began, calmly enough, in the capital. Beautiful spring weather brought people out in droves to sit and talk politics in the pavement cafes. At this stage, the pundits were convinced people would vote overwhelmingly for the combined parties of the moderate right, who would end up with between 310 and 320 seats. The socialists, it was predicted, would get 176. Chartres, in the heart of France. People here were up early to attend services in the cathedral. Afterwards, they gathered on street corners to gossip about the likely outcome of the election. In 1981, Chartres, like the rest of France, swung towards the socialists, but today they were to move back towards the right. Georges Lemoine, government minister and mayor of Chartres, was amongst the first to cast his vote. He was returned to Parliament as a socialist MP, but will lose his ministry to a new right-wing cabinet member. This year, with a new PR system, there was only one chance to